yachena amasat.
Eti
nero charavantonti me morana. For 500, who are the team top floor. 500 to all my friends. This is from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhu, text 133. And the chapter number is 17. The Lord travels to Vrindavan. And you just happen to have come to this verse, Nama Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Purna Shuddha Nitya Mukto Vinatavam Namanamino. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental knowledge. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there is no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. This is a quotation from the Padma Purana. And now we just have a few minutes left. So take some reflections from the day, week, month, year, or questions. Yes. Vrindavan Natavala.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question. You read some quotation, and I think it said something like, those who come to see and offer obeisances to the deity are imperceptibly liberated. I wasn't quite sure what that meant, and I'm wondering if you could explain it more.
First of all, it comes in the context of what Cultivating, describing the different levels of devotional service, and he's talking about the Kṛṣṇa Adhikari. He says the Kṛṣṇa Adhikari comes to the temple to see the Lord. That's the particularity of the Kṛṣṇa, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Acharyam eva haraye, pujam yam sharayehate. Kṛṣṇa Adhikari is specifically attracted to seeing the deity in the temple, not so much interested in hearing from devotees, and has no idea about how to do good for others. However, when such a person comes to the temple and smells the incense and sees the deities, then his or her material life is temporarily suspended, in that there is a kind of samadhi that the person's in their absorption in the beauty of the Lord, the surrounding atmosphere, and it's enveloping. The environment of the temple is transient, is surcharged, and even if the person's not aware of the fact that that's the case, they're absorbed for that time in thinking of the Lord, seeing Him, appreciating the beauty of the Lord. Recently, although not that recently, I was in Chicago, and after the morning program, I saw people come on their way to work, and they would just stop into the temple and sit. They weren't chanting. They weren't doing anything else either. They were just sitting and looking at Kishori. And I so much appreciated the environment where they were just happy to be there. I've seen it also in Chennai, that temple that Banu Maharaj designed fact, people come there all the time and they just sit. They don't do anything except just look at the deity, and they don't want to leave. And for that time, they're in the moment, just appreciating Krishna's beauty. So that's the summarization of the explanation Prabhupada gives in that purport. Yes? A reflection. Okay, let's give Radhika the microphone.
Yes, Marge. So something that, this kind of ties into my reflection of Yatra as a whole, kind of the different threads that fall into this theme of gratitude. I've been feeling immense gratitude in several different categories that I just wanted to share. But it kind of all came together today in your morning class when we were at Yoga Pith. And you were saying how Yoga Pith means that God does come to a specific place. And you were talking about how he comes for the pleasure of his devotees and comes in this perfect form that's very aesthetically pleasing. And I was just reflecting on this point, that how fortunate we are that we have a place to go, like Yoga Pith or even Vrindavan, to see the birthplace of Krishna and even be able to perceive him in the deity form. How yesterday you were talking about how we actually have this deity form, even though we're neophyte devotees and so unqualified to see the Lord, that he comes in this deity form, this medium, to reciprocate and communicate with us. And so feeling gratitude that we have these places, these temples to go to, also to have this deity form. I was really feeling that when I took Darshan of Radha Madhava the first day that we came here. And lastly, also immense gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for translating and making this philosophy of the Gaudiya Math so accessible to us. Even when we turn our pages in the book and we look for the English translation, we take that for granted. Like, what is the meaning of the Sanskrit verse? But we really owe it all to him for making this so accessible to all of us in the West that aren't Sanskrit scholars. So I just wanted to share that reflection.
First point you made about specificity, and that those who wish to remain in ignorance, and ignorance also means ignorance. You may notice that when somebody ignores you, there's a palpable sense of anxiety that arises. A pall falls over the room when somebody ignores you, or any circumstance. Ignorance is very painful. And the whole material world is painful because of ignoring Krishna. And one of the aspects and ways that people ignore Krishna is to deny any specific attribute. This is the nirvishesh idea that, there's no quality there, and there's nothing you can point to that identifies a specific person as God. And on the other hand, we have such specific details that it's for those who are entering into the path of bhakti, it's one may be immediately taken aback. I remember first coming to the temple in San Francisco and not being able to look at the deities. I looked at the flowers instead, because that was as much specificity as I could handle. And if you tell somebody God plays a flute, it's like, how do you know? And how would God play a flute? And it is almost abhorrent to people to know that God has a specific personality and qualities. And one other observation I've had about gratitude is that if you have gratitude, it always traces back to a person, because a person means one who's conscious and who can have intention. And you can't have gratitude unless somebody was intentionally kind to you. If you find $100 on the ground and you can't trace out where it came from, or even if you can, you can't have gratitude for it unless you say something like, I thank the universe, which people do sometimes, especially in California. I really thank the universe for this, in which case you're trying to personify that the universe has an intention. Why not take it a step further and say, okay, there's a person behind that. There's at least a goddess behind it somewhere. And if we have any gratitude, that means there's a person behind it somewhere. So just going back to this sense of embrace the personality of God. That's bhakti, and that becomes relishable. It turns the whole bent of the material world, which is to deny God personality, on its head. And that's what we do. And that's what the Shastras do. Nice point, thank you very much. Yes?
Hare Krishna. Yesterday at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir, we heard you read the last instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. First of all, it was very nice to hear that. And I had an observation that the instructions started with number 1 and the last one, saying that we're supposed to be followers of Rupa and Raghunath. And I think at least 3 or 4 times Bhaktisiddhanta said that we should just consider ourselves the speck of the lotus feet of Goswami. I just wanted to ask you if you could expound upon what this means and what we should do to develop that root.
The ways in which our acharyas have organized a system of bhakti for us to follow are following Srila Rupa Goswami. We have a connection to the spiritual world only through the Sri Guru Parampara, and coming from those, Rupa Goswami, who are directly connected to Krishna. There are 2 ways in which Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami are conceptualized. One is in their eternal forms in the spiritual world, as manjaris, and another as their forms here in the material world, where they're absolutely transcendental, yet they work in very specific ways and perform very specific kinds of devotional service, as mentioned in the Sat Goswami Ashtakam by Srinivasa Acharya, when he talks about, as an example, Sankhya Purvaka Nam Dananati Kalavasani Krito. You can see they're doing some counting in sadhana, measuring every day what they're doing. And we know how Rupa and Sanatan took the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to manifest Vrindavan in the ways of, in very practical ways, excavating holy places and building. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answered the debate that had gone on where some people would claim that they're just following Rupa in the spiritual world in his eternal form. But he gave evidence and the strong opinion that we follow in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatan as they're manifest in this world. And if you look at the ways in which Srila Prabhupada performed his devotional service and then meted out process for us, it's that process. So we follow by preaching, by building temples, by engaging in Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananati counting, how we're chanting, and so forth. And in that way, we follow the great footsteps of the Mahats. Swayam Bujaksha Kila Satvadami Samadhi Nadeshi Chaitasaike Pada Putena Mahakrutena Kurvanti Kovatsapadam Vavavdim, which I quoted a couple times already. Pada Putena Mahakrutena Mahat, the great souls, unassailable great souls like Rupa and Raghunath, Sanatan, etc. They show the path, they leave the path behind. Rupa Goswami painstakingly wrote the nectar of devotion, but to speak of the nectar of instruction, and said, follow this. And if you follow that process, then Tannama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kṛṣṇa Rasanamana Sniyoja If you engage in the process that Rupa Goswami gives in his essence of all advice, as he says in that verse, in the book called The Nectar of Instruction, then step by step, you'll come to this position of coveting the topics of the devotees in Vrindavan. It'll be your heart and soul. And then it becomes more and more specific, that you're becoming naturally attracted to hearing in a specific way. And from that, one begins to, as even we do in this world, there's a role playing. Every being who's born in this world does sociologically. We play all kinds of roles. There's the way in which we then identify ourselves as having a particular role following a particular devotee in Vrindavan. Tishtan Raje Tanam Ragi Janamagami Kalam Naye Akila Miti Pradesha Sara. But that's an eternal role, and it awakens by the mercy of the Lord within our mind and heart as He's inviting us to perform service to Him in the spiritual world. And that was the path that Rupa Goswami chalked out for us. It's the path that Prabhupada made available, and it's, in a general sense, what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu amazingly gave to anyone and everyone, because it's the most exalted path and unimaginably exalted. And now we're offering it to people at strip malls, in restaurants and bars, and wherever we may go. Well, that's it, because after 5 after 7, the soup starts getting cold. There's no way to eat it downstairs. Otherwise, we just keep going till 9, and then you can have hot soup. You can't have cold soup. And so I'm feeling a little melancholy because somehow or other, time always moves on, doesn't it? Yeah. And I haven't really noticed the time so much because since the very beginning we've just been rolling. And it's also a revelation to me how the simple formula of coming to the Dham and hearing and chanting together is a lot deeper than the mind might think. Oh, that place, I've been there before. But every time you go, and even along the way, it's so blissful. I could say serene on the Ganga and the Jalangi yesterday, just going to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. And I was thinking, in the scheme of things, compared to a brand new Marriott hotel or something like that, it's not really a big house. It's just a little place. So is Srivasangam. The feeling is there. Just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's final pastimes were in the Gambhira, which means deep, 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 deep. But the room is only 10 by 10, if that. And Gambhira is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced the highest realizations, ecstasies, or engaged in what he came to taste. So, just feel a little anxious. Nonetheless, the damage is done. We've done what we've done. We decided, we bought the tickets, right? Yes. We all came deliberately, sat on airplanes, sat in airports, all to come here just for the experience. And now we have it, and it can't be taken away. we don't even know how much we took. Sometimes you accidentally take too much. And then later on, you go like, how much did I take? And it's like that coming to the Dham also, because it's the live spiritual world that we're walking through, and we may not realize it till later how much we've ingested by coming here. So before the soup gets cold, and anticipating tomorrow, which is what? Tomorrow we're going to our favorite place in the whole universe.
Haribo!
We're going to get on a boat. We're going to cross the Ganga. And then we're going to get off, Krishna willing, at Navadvip dock. We're going to get in a bunch of rickshaws. And we're going to go to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's Bhajan Kutir. And after that, then we're going to jump on the same rickshaws. Hope I'm not taking away your thing. Actually, come on up here, you tell them what they want.